So our next question comes from Greg P. Greg says, "Hey guys, I love the podcast and I really appreciate the practical advice you share. I'd love to hear your take on long-term care insurance. For many people, it seems like the decision hinges on net worth. Either one, you're below a certain threshold, so you might be able to rely on Medicaid, or two, you're above a certain threshold and you can maybe afford to self-insure. But of course, it's not that simple. So how do you guys approach this question? Would you lean toward a traditional long-term care insurance policy or explore a hybrid or maybe an annuity-based product? Personally, I'm not a big fan of the annuity route. It feels more expensive and less transparent, and I like to keep things simple and straightforward when possible. Thanks again. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts if you decide to dig into this topic." Robert, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, Austin, I'll take this one because I have a very specific story of what happened with me. My mother's Medicaid ran out. We had to put her in hospice. I was in the consideration of long-term care insurance, but I never pulled the trigger. And unfortunately, it was a very costly mistake for me. So I think the non-hybrid version is definitely the better way to go. I'm not an insurance expert, but we have worked with Surience, and we can put a link in the show notes to give you the contact there. I think they do a wonderful job, but I think everyone should consider this, especially as your parents are getting elderly and there might be some health issues in question, because you might not be able to count on Medicaid fully, especially moving forward as there are more and more issues that have been discussed of potential payouts from Medicaid and Social Security and some of these other funding mechanisms. So I would just really look into it and not worry so much about what your net worth is, but what it can do and what the cost is relative to what the cost could be if you went down the road of needing long-term care.
Yeah, I also think Medicaid isn't like a solution for more than maybe like 10 or 15% of people, seniors, right? I mean, I think the threshold is about $25,000 or $30,000 a year of income. And so if you're a senior that makes more than that, then like you can't qualify, which I imagine is a lot of people listening to the show. So my experience was starting earlier this year, I started paying about $4,000 a month for at-home caregivers to start coming over to my dad's house and be with him for 6, 7, 8 hours a day. And that was all out of pocket, of course. I didn't have any sort of insurance that would cover any of that stuff. And, you know, he wasn't qualifying for Medicaid. He made about, I think, like 40 or 50,000 a year, something like that. So he wouldn't qualify for Medicaid. I was paying for some of that stuff out of pocket. And so, like, the predicament that we were in was he needed more care than what was offered at home. So we needed to have to move into one of these sort of long-term care facilities for seniors, senior living facilities. And those were anywhere between, I think the cheapest one that we had found was about $4,500 plus another $1,000 or $1,500 for more care. So you're looking at about $5,000 to $7,000, like average is kind of what we were seeing. I looked at 3 different places around Nashville. And so if you didn't have some sort of mechanism to pay for that, you were pretty much SOL, right? And so if I were to do it all over again, I guess there's 2 ways to solve this problem. And everyone listening needs to take this very seriously as someone whose dad just died last week and had a crazy 6-month experience trying to figure out all of the ebbs and flows of, you know, care at end of life care. The first way you do this is to self-insure, which is what Greg was alluding to. That essentially just means that you are paying for this $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month of care out of your assets. That might be, you know, you sell your home because you no longer need to live in that home. You're living in a facility and you tap into the equity of that. Maybe that means you have some retirement accounts that you're paying for this out of. Maybe that means that you've got some sort of pension or Social Security and things that you're using to pay for this. So like you're paying for it out of your own assets, you're self-insured. And the way that you become self-insured is you're setting aside $300, $400, $500, $600 a month and investing it for 20 years, right, while you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, allowing this nest egg to grow so you have money to pay for this type of care when you're older. The other way is you actually go and you buy long-term care insurance. And long-term care insurance, how I understand it, I'm no expert, go talk to our friends over at Surience. Russ McBride's great at this type of stuff. But how I understand it is you're paying a monthly premium of $400, $500, $600, $700 a month. And in exchange of that, whenever you need long-term care insurance in the future, you have up to $7,000, $10,000, $12,000 a month in perpetuity that they will provide you over a It's either perpetual or maybe a specific period of time. There's a lot of nuances there, but I guess what I'm saying is you pay a monthly premium so that in the future you have guaranteed income coming from this contract that will allow you to offset, your living expenses as a senior. If you were paying $300, $400, $500 a month throughout your 40s, 50s, and 60s into this insurance contract, and then on the flip side, let's say at 71, you now need to start taking out $12,000 a month for the next, 10 years. That's $1.4 million that this contract will have paid you over that 10-year period of time. Maybe $1.4 million you wouldn't have had from putting that same $300 a month into the market. So you have to do the math and figure out timelines and things like that. It's a lot. Please go talk to a professional about this. But one, it's important. Everyone here needs to be thinking about it. If it's with your parents, if it's with you, I would go back 100 times and pay for my dad's care, $4,000 a month. No problem. I'm in all the time. I love that man. But on the same token, I know that it felt weird for him, for me to pay for his care. And it felt like he didn't want me to, but he kind of needed me to. So have those conversations with people, do the planning necessary. Everyone's going to die. We're all going to get older, right? There's going to be a point where we can't take care of ourselves if it's in our 70s or our 80s or whatever else. And as someone who wants to be self-sufficient as long as I can, I don't want to feel like I'm a burden to other people. So there's a lot of things to consider there. But Greg, really, really great question.
I want to add one more thing because it kind of spelled it out really well a couple weeks ago. Ray Dalio did an interview and he was talking about what he calls the midlife squeeze. And I think you just covered it, but I really like that term. And he was talking about this exact topic where so many people, when they get into their 40s, their mid 40s and getting into their 50s, the kids are getting expensive and the parents are elderly. And you get in that situation where you're not prepared for the additional expense of, let's say the kids need college help or they need help with the down payment on a home, but then the parents might need long-term care help. So be prepared. Like Austin said, get ahead of it. Don't wait until it's too late or find yourself caught off guard in a situation where it might cost you $4, $5, $6, $8,000 a month for that care. And you can do all of that ahead of time by proper planning.